Right.
So in JavaScript, you can do immutable programming. In fact, there's libraries and things out there that will help you practice that discipline. But it does have to be a discipline because you can mutate variables in JavaScript.
That's right. And it's so easy to just assign to a hash map or, an object as a hash map and delete keys out of it. Like if you do any of that, you're modifying it. And any other piece of code that has a reference to it, it's also changed for them too. Right. And I'm not saying it's bad. Like it's not bad to do that or to be able to do that, but it's not immutable.
Well, to go back to your language from earlier, you're kind of taking what would have been a calculation and turning it into an action at that point because you are changing the world.
That's right.
And that's dangerous because you're increasing the surface area of your actions, and we already decided that we want to minimize those.
Another thing about actions that I didn't mention was that they spread. So if you imagine function A calls function B and function B calls function C, if function C is an action, meaning it depends on when it's called, then function B has to be an action too because it calls function C. And then function A has to be an action because it calls function B. So this is kind of like a corollary of the definition of actions, calculations, and data. A lot of people tried to put layers and layers of wrapping around mutation so that it goes away, but it can't. If you put it down at the bottom, everything above it is going to have to be an action. What you want to do is kind of reverse it.
That's interesting.
And put it all at the top. Because the top is going to be an action anyway. Your main function, for instance, that's going to be an action. There's no way to avoid that. And
have a good piece of software. I ran it and nothing happened.
Something that just adds some numbers up.
I think we'll get into this a little bit more later, but I think that ties deeply into the way that in sort of front end frameworks and their move towards functionality, how they think about where state lives, right? And how you want to push state up the tree.
Right.
So that you can have more and more
pure
components. I was going to say pure components, but I was trying to figure out calculated components. What's a nomenclature we might use here?
Well, yeah, and the move is that they become just functions.